You can't tell from looking at a person whether they've had a head injury, and I think it'd be good to be patient with people and not to judge people by their appearance, because some of us do have head injuries. I was 7 years old and running across the street, and I hit a curb and split my head open in the hospital. Mainly memory and finding myself back where I started. I have to use landmarks, and it's pretty difficult to navigate and get back to where I started with anything I do.
I received a brain injury and with post-traumatic stress, and how I got an injury is being assaulted by 4 people. I'm trying to get back to my life, what I had, and I just want to get everything what I had for me and my little girl.
Well, in 1987, I was involved in a motorcycle accident with my friend Chuck, and I suffered numerous internal injuries. One of them was a brain injury. I had 13 bone fractures, and my friend was killed, so it was pretty bad. Since it's been, what, 25 years, I guess, around 24 years since then, yeah. I was a different person after my brain injury, and I had to go through a lot of rehabilitation. I spent a good 3.5 months in the hospital, a good year in a wheelchair and in canes and walkers. I spent a 1.5 years in rehabilitation also, as far as physical rehabilitation, occupational therapy, and speech therapy.
In 2000, I went to Superbike races, and I was in an automobile accident. Anger problems, emotional, and a variety of things. But mostly emotional. I was very emotional, suicidal. I couldn't accept being like this. Just knowing that you're not out there by yourself and things do get better, because it's always, you always think that it's not going to get better. That's the way you see it, but you just got to keep trying. Even though it's hard, but it does get better.
2.5 years ago, I had NMDA receptor encephalitis, which is swelling of the brain. And so it was they said it was my body attacking my brain. And so I had to have 2 brain surgeries for them to figure out what was wrong with me. And it left me pretty much, when I awoke from it, I was like comatose for 4 months, and I didn't know anything. And when I woke up, I couldn't talk, I couldn't walk or anything. Just that having a brain injury is just, unless you've had one, you can never understand. And sometimes it's very frustrating that people don't understand.
Me balacieron en la cabeza. No recuerdo mucho de lo que pasó ese día. Primero mi problema era más, también estaba confundido, porque como la bala me afectó todo mi lado derecho, so tuve que empezar como a escribir todo con... Ahora soy estudiante del Hartnell College. Ahí me ha ayudado. Tengo mi clase de educación física, como hago terapia allí, como en la caminadora, las pesas, y tengo una clase de inglés para empezar otra vez todo, como para escribir, leer, y ya tengo como 3 semestres tomando esas clases, y ahorita he agarrado B's y C's.
On December 19th, 2008, I was on my way to work, and the driver of the car was speeding, and car cut him off, and instead of hitting the car, my driver swerved. We hit the divide, and I got thrown from the car. I landed on my head, fractured my rib, fractured my C1 vertebrae twice, and I hit my head so hard I sustained traumatic brain injury. Since the accident, I've gone back to school, and at school there's the Disabled Students Programs and Services that have been a huge help for me, helped me out with longer time on tests, things of that sort. And I recently graduated from Hartnell College here in Salinas, and I'm looking to transfer. So I'm planning on continuing. I've always really been into business, so trying to help a friend of mine that has a clothing company, and just continue with schooling and take it one day at a time. You know?
I've actually had 8 or 9 mild brain injuries. So I'll focus in on the one that occurred in 1993 because that directly impacted my ability to work for a living. And that was a rollover accident in Colorado. I was not thrown from the car, but when they lifted the van off of me, they were afraid that I was going to bleed out, so I was helicoptered in. I had a tumor on my balance nerve, which led to the accident. That's what actually caused the rollover accident. I was forward moving. I was not going to let this stop me, even though I was no longer able to work for a living, make money, in other words. I was determined to be part of my community, and so I volunteered.
Well, there were a couple of occasions. The first time was when I was a baby and I fell on my head. And then when I was in my 20s, I lived in Chicago, and I was running in the cold, and I passed out and fell on my head. And there was also another occasion where I had a bicycle accident, and I fell on my head. I would say the biggest issue for me is problems with getting hired and employment. I feel like that has really been an issue. Employers have not wanted to hire me because of my disability.
I had 4 TBIs, and I found out through the group that actually that's a pretty common number. The first one was when I was an infant. I was dropped on my head on a tile floor by the babysitter, and I had seizures for a year. It took my parents a long time to find out what had happened because the babysitter didn't tell. The second time I was 4 years old, and I was playing with my cousin, and I hit a sharp edge of a coffee table. Very powerful prefrontal cortex area. And when I was 11, I had a concussion when I slipped and fell on the ice. And then when I was 27, I was hit by a car while I was riding my bicycle. And I was wearing a helmet, but I didn't realize that even the best helmet doesn't do all that good a job. I have been fired over 50 times. I set up great expectations with my dedication and my intelligence, but I can't maintain it, and typically at 3 to 6 months I'm out.
What I found to be helpful is, well, these meetings for one, because I don't feel so alone, like I'm a lone ranger.
It was really hard for me to understand what TBI was until I got introduced to TBI services. And from there on, got totally understandable, learned about other people with brain injuries, made some good friends.
We come out of the brain injury a different person, and the way we think, the way we talk, the way we learn, that getting back into society is actually a difficult thing to do. So it's nice to have these services because it does help us quite a bit.
Coming to CISO and help me see that I'm not the only one out there with these problems. There's other people they have problems like me and even worse, so they actually help me.
This Cecil program is very, very helpful. It's very nice meeting other people that have some of the same issues as you.
Central Coast Center for Independent Living, Cecil, has been a huge support in my life since my brain injury.
Even though we are different, I hope that we will not be judged and just be accepted for the people that we are. Even though we might be a little different, or people may not understand us.
It's the first place I felt really heard and understood. Even people who love me, who've known me most of my life, don't understand this, no matter how much I tell them. And I walk into the room and I can say one sentence or sometimes one word, and people will be nodding their heads and sharing their same experience. And one of the hardest things about brain injuries is not being believed, because it's one of the invisible disabilities, and it really means a lot to be visible in my group at Cecil.